This is Monsteropolis, is it not? A show about legends, anomalies, and monsters, of course. My favorite subject. My name's Mark Matzke, and I am joined by Heather Moser.
Hello.
Researcher and interviewer and just director of all things Fortean.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff, the good stuff. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we whetted our appetite
Ah.
for killing creatures last week.
Not literally killing them. They're killer creatures.
Yeah, for killer creatures. For, homicidal haints. There's your title, showrunner.
Yeah, people will love that one.
I know.
People know what all that means.
How can they? All I
could
can
they not
say
click on that?
is if that showed up in my recommended, next 40 minutes are spoken for.
You got one review right there. Boom. Done.
Forget this guy being blown by the wind. I'm going to watch Homicidal Haints right now.
This guy being
I just saw this today. And I got in, I was like pulled into it. Thanks, MSN homepage. It's like, watch this video of a guy being blown by the wind. And sure enough, it's in a city.
Yeah.
And he's walking along in a suit and tie. And he's got this stack of papers, and this huge wind comes up, like blows the papers all around, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll go sit on this bench." The wind like blows him along the bench, like he thinks I'll be safe, and no, he's being scooted along the bench by the wind. So,
Wow.
rather than that, I would watch what we're
Homicidal
doing
Haints?
right now. Yeah.
Oh,
so.
boy.
The fact of the matter is, there are plenty of stories out there where it's not just a cute cryptid or the peaceful Bigfoot walking by, but things take a deadly turn. And those stories are contemporary right down to the present day, but they also stretch back into the mists of time. And Wendigo was sort of dipping a toe into that subject, where he's all about killing. I mean, he exists to hunt people down. Right. And so that has been the background for a lot of our original monster stories. I think it's, I don't know, as times have changed, we've taken a different look at monsters and what they mean. But a lot of the monster stories from, you know, long ago were, they're out to get you, and watch your step. So.
Yeah, stay out of the woods.
Killer cryptids.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start us on this?
Well, I can start us on the practical part of killer cryptids, which is the idea of legend tripping and going places that you shouldn't go. So my favorite one to bring up in these stories is the Poplick monster, a goat man. He's not the only goat man by any means, but he's maybe the most famous one because he has a name.
Right. He's branded.
Yeah, he's branded, trademarked. But the idea that you can summon this creature by running across a train trestle, which the Poplick train trestle is, dozens of feet high over the Poplick Creek. There is nothing to get off of the tracks when you're in the middle other than to jump or fall to your death, most likely. And it's an active train track. So the problem is, and it's used often, that when legend trippers or youths go up there for fun or to see if they can run across and summon it or whatever, they'll find themselves sometimes out in the middle of the tracks with nowhere to go, and a train is coming and they end up dead. I've heard before, like the Poplick monster being branded as literally the deadliest cryptid because he actually has a body count. It's not like the stories of, Bigfoot did this to me and there's really no proof or whatever. Like there have been many people that have passed away trying to summon this thing or find it. But so he's a goat man that either pops up because you've gone across the train trestle. Sometimes the story is that you drive under it, which is much safer to do because there's a road there. And he'll hop down on the hood of your car or whatever. And I'm not saying that everybody that's been on those train tracks that has been hurt was looking for the Poplik monster necessarily, but we definitely know that there are people who have. That was their intention. So actually, a couple years ago, we took a family vacation down to Adams to go visit some of like the Bell Witch Cave and so on. And on the way back, we stopped at the Poplik train trestle because it's in Louisville. It's just, I mean, you can get to it very quickly or very easily. And there was a memorial for a teenage girl that had just passed away just a month or so before we got there.
Wow.
She and a couple friends had gone up on the train tracks and I think maybe one of them survived, but, and I think one was still in the hospital and then she had passed away. And so there was a memorial. So then I took the time to talk to the kids about, I understand that mom does, you know, like mom makes movies about this stuff or whatever, or is interested in this kind of thing. But there's big signs that say don't climb. There's fences up. Just don't ignore that just for the sake of a story. So anyway, that's the, you know, the downer part, I guess, like the, not so much a monster tale as just us making choices that we shouldn't make necessarily. So yeah, that's, I'll start off with the practical stuff. Don't go where you shouldn't go looking for a monster, period.
Do you know in any of those Poplik stories, is the monster aggressive? Like,
I'm pretty
would
sure
get you? Like,
I'm pretty sure that actually most of the Goat Man stories that I've heard, he's aggressive.
Okay.
I don't think that there's ever been one where I have heard of him not being.
Right.
I'm thinking like axe wielding Goat Man is what comes to my mind a lot of times when I think of a Goat Man. But yeah, no, he's not a passive.
Right. So there's a bunch of pan stuff behind that, right? That's the kind of the context for a goat man in the first place. Because how else do you end up with a goat man?
Yeah. I mean, some of the stories are that there was like a circus. You don't want to go this way?
No, I said you don't want to know.
Oh. Some of the stories that there was like a circus going through town and a train wrecked or whatever, and there was some like freak animal that got loose or whatever. Then there's some stories that it was a satanic like cult that summoned a demon of sorts. And there's others that I think it's the one in Texas. I think it's Alton, Texas, or Denton, Texas, whatever. It's in Texas. There's a bridge, a Goat Man's Bridge. And I feel like that might be the one where the story is that a goat farmer was killed. Like hanged, I think. I think it was a racially motivated thing. Oh. And then the idea is that then this creature came as a result of that. It's
formed out of all the energy of that.
Yeah. Somehow. So, but yeah, I mean, when you think of goat, half man, that's like Pan for sure.
Yeah.
Which Pan, that whole origin thing is interesting anyway. He's the only one deity who died, supposedly.
Oh. Wow.
Also, he's a really good snapshot of the way some of our deities used to be, because he's kind of like a snapshot of the morphing process before they came completely human-like. So the idea is that there were some deities that were full-on animal-like, because that's what were things that we didn't understand so much and had all these powers, and he's kind of like stuck
in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liminal, as the kids say these days.
Yeah. Yep. As the
in addition to
say.
Sick.
Yeah. Sick liminal deities. You know.
That's a great band.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. What's funny is when you were describing that, what I thought of was a location in Salt Fork State Park at Hozak's Cave, which is like a waterfall and a exposed cave system with about probably 40 foot drop to the bottom from the top. And there's memorials there as well for people who have climbed up where they shouldn't have been and fell and actually did die as a result. And that's not to say that they were there specifically for Bigfoot, although these days, Salt Fork is that sort of legend tripping destination. So it's possible that somebody could like blunder into that area and not really know what's going on.
Yeah.
So there is, as you said, a reason to be very conscious of your surroundings when you're going out.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
looking for the truth yourself. So what else? Moving, do you have more practical?
More practical ones?
Yeah.
So the next one that I think of when I think of killer cryptids is the Beast of Land Between the Lakes.
Yeah.
Beast of Gevaudan.
Yes.
So we get into Dogman territory, which, to be fair, I don't think I've ever heard a Dogman story. Well, okay, I don't want to say that because there's some where they've been like a guardian type situation, but guardian of the land, not necessarily the people. Dogman are usually aggressive. So the story with the Beast of Land Between the Lakes, supposedly a family was slaughtered in the 80s that had gone camping. Like horribly slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I know that there is someone who is supposedly a witness that survived it somehow. Like I don't know all of his details either, but he has come forward recently, like in the last few years, to kind of talk about what had happened. But yeah, so we get into Dogman territory there.
Mm-hmm.
He kills. He's not fun.
No. Right. And spoiler free, there's a story at the heart of American Werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
Small Town Monsters production.
Coming to you soon.
Coming out.
Soon.
That is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And the witness to this seems to me to be absolutely credible.
Yeah.
So it's mind-blowing.
This won't be in the episode. Is it the pants guy?
No.
Pants guy?
It's not the pants guy. I'm sure of it. Is it the judge? You wouldn't know if he's the judge or not.
No.
What does he look like?
Bearded old guy.
Oh, yeah, that's Martin Gropes. He's a former police officer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
He was in Kentucky.
Yeah, this one, retired law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He trailed by Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah, with the, yeah.
And then encounters a dog man that like rushes towards him. He like unloads 2 shots, and with the flash of the muzzle each time, he sees like the imprint of the image of this dog man like racing at him. And then the two are seen together as they're leaving the campsite, almost as if Sasquatch was using the dog man as like an attack. Mm-hmm. Like they were working in concert with each other. Whoa. And this is like a salt of the earth, completely believable guy who's like in the course. I don't know if you got the same impression, but like as he's telling the story, he's trying to make it seem not as crazy as it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think for his own sake, like playing down certain details. And then later on he says, well, but it's.
There's stuff that he had told me in the, like when we've been talking that he wouldn't say on camera because of how he was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Plus out of respect for, he wasn't alone and he didn't want to upset the family of the man. The man that he was with is now deceased,
I
but
see.
he didn't want extra stuff out there for him to have problems. But yeah, no, he's a legit guy.
Back to the
Okay, cool. So yeah, Dogman, bad dude.
And evidently, I mean, there have been things that they have in that area, like the park area. They've changed or let campsites go back to natural states, allegedly because terrible things have happened there.
They won't admit it, from what I understand, which is the typical story.
Yeah.
But yeah, and for American Werewolves, we did go visit Land Between the Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be in there. And the the place of that horrible murder, we did get to see. And it was, I mean, it's just woods now. I don't know what it would have looked like then. But yeah.
Wow. Well, it's very interesting that there's a direct link between that story and one of the stories that I looked into for Killer Cryptid, which is sort of the prototypical killer cryptid. one that's historically well attested to, and it is the story of the Beast of Gevaudan. Fairly well known, I think, at this point in cryptid circles, but I think is remarkable for its documentation. You know, it's verifiable. Hundreds, over 100 deaths were reported and attributed to this creature, whatever it was. And it seems to be like now a scholarly pursuit is trying to get to the bottom of what was the beast,
right?
Actually. And, I was on Amazon looking at books about the Beast of Javedon, and it seems like now the most recent ones are all saying, and blah, 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 and the definitive identity of the creature we will unveil. So it just makes me wonder, I mean, are they all saying the same thing? Probably not.
You got to buy their books to find out.
Exactly. Exactly. But, this was 1764 to 1767 in the south of France. Something was running around killing people, and it seemed like its preference was female and children, which from a predatory standpoint makes a certain amount of sense. And, again, the thing that makes this so remarkable, I think, is the fact that you had people reporting on it, and it in the the late 1700s, it by today's standards, it's a story that went viral across Europe.
Yeah.
People were glued to finding out how this is going to turn out, and if that could happen in their own backyard and stuff like that. And you had people hunting it. I mean, it's a very sort of, I guess, prototypical story in the sense that you have the inciting incident, the posse forms, they go out. In this case, they have success, evidently, because a creature is finally killed, and the killings come to a stop in that region, at least in the way that they were happening. Now, the most likely creature, it seems, is that it was some type of wolf, and there was the sort of, it's a cult classic film, The Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is tied into the Beast of Gevaudan. But, it says, one way of describing it is all eyewitness accounts declaring in unison that it was not a wolf, but some beast. And so that among the villagers who tended towards the belief in the supernatural, the beast was considered a loup-garou or werewolf. Most common candidate identifications were a lion, a tiger, a hyena, or a wolf hybrid of some sort. And I do know that there's one book in particular that I have, and their conclusion is that it could have been a wolf crossed with a type of hunting dog that is also large and big-boned. And I am no expert at all on genetics or things of that nature, but the conclusion that book was suggesting was that when you cross these species, it tends towards aggressiveness.
Okay.
And that's something that's, I guess, demonstrable, that you cross these two kind of creatures, and what you're going to get is something that wants to attack and kill and eat. So that is a possibility. But there's a whole, this whole extended story. There's extended descriptions of what happened. There were some who did feel strongly that it was a wolf. A notary who prepared a report about the creature said this animal appears to be a wolf, but an extraordinary one. By its figure and proportions, it's very different from the wolves that one sees in this country. This is what more than 300 people from all around have certified. So I guess that's another element to the story, is mass amount of eyewitnesses who saw something, if only for a few seconds. Some had prolonged daylight sightings of some type of unidentified creature running around in fields and so forth.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story as well.
Well, the other thing with the crossbreeding, then not only could the aggression could come out, that the size change would be something key. Because what is it? Is it the ligers? Is that what they are? Where you cross a tiger and a lion? It's a very specific way to do it. It's a male lion and a female tiger, and it creates this massive animal. Right there, yeah. A liger, much larger than both the lion and the tiger.
Right.
But if you have a male tiger and a female lion, then it's a tigon, and it's the same size or smaller.
Okay.
So it's completely possible, I suppose, if it were a larger hunting dog and a wolf of some sort.
Yeah.
Just the right thing could not only make it more aggressive, but make it larger, which would make it seem like a beast.
Right.
Instead of just a regular wolf. Because if there's a lot of people seeing it and they're all saying, no, it was a beast, to me that means it has to be bigger. But to think of it like a tiger or a hyena, though, that's kind of weird.
Right. I mean, there you would have to be talking about an escapee from some rich oligarch's
That's true.
menagerie, like a hyena just doesn't show up in France.
That's true.
So
leftovers from when the Romans took them.
Yeah.
Brought them out for animal tricks.
Yeah, right. I remember talking about that recently. So this was interesting too, I thought, just as an aside. The author of this is Brian Dunning, who hosts the Skeptoid podcast. This is from his blog, and this is something cool to think about. He said, there's a point we've mentioned many times on Skeptoid. It's a hint that helps you determine which sources are valid, which are not. Lazy authors often copy and paste from each other without going back to the original sources. Virtually any book or article you'll find on the Beast of Gevaudan written by a cryptozoologist says that inside the stomach of the animal, the collarbone of a young girl was found. Dismiss anything that says this because it's wrong, and it shows that the author did not check their source. And you also can't determine gender from a collarbone. That's true. How would you know? The two existing documents that discuss the necropsy on the animal, the Marin Report and another document known as the Letter from Auvergne, both clearly state that the stomach contained the head and a femur from a child. There's no mention of a collarbone. The French word for femur is femur. Kind of hard to get wrong.
Did say that part, kind of hard to get wrong.
It says femur. Any author who says the animal described in the necropsy report was not a wolf also mentions a collarbone should be dismissed. Wolves do not typically eat bones. However, they'll often crush them for the marrow and ingest fragments. So that brings up a good point, which is that, copy and paste, that's not even an internet feature, really.
Yeah.
Although it's enabled by internet, but you get into some genres of cryptozoology books, and it's just re-reporting what has been found already in another source and sort of arranging those. So the Beast of Gevaudan.
That's why you should cite your sources.
Yep, that's right.
Cite your sources, man.
Yep. You know it.
Did you have any other killer cryptids?
I have a lot of other killer cryptids, actually. But we're going to watch that, I think.
Yeah. That's true.
So I drew these from this most excellent resource. Kathy Strain's Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters.
Yep. See, I'm just going to start bringing my computer so I can order books as Mark recommends them.
It's April and or May, whenever this posts, which is sort of our loose cannibal killer theme time. So this seemed like a logical place to turn. Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, Bigfoot in Native Culture by Kathy Strain, and published by Hancock House, by the way. One of my favorite imprints. And what Kathy has done in this excellent tome is simply assemble as many different stories as she had at her fingertips, divided by indigenous people groups, having to do with figures that could be interpreted as Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Some are directly using that terminology because of the location and the tribe from which that description comes. But it's really anything that, and even the Wendigo stuff we were talking about before, has overlap with the stories that are collected here.
Yeah.
So just a couple examples that I wanted to share from the book. This one is from, it's the Miwok culture, and it is Sacha-Cha the ogre. Sacha-Cha lived among the cliffs along the river. His food was human beings. He would come to a village and take his choice of the women. Nothing could harm him. One day he went to a village and selected a fine, fat young woman whom he took home. Afterward, she gave birth to 2 children. Still, he kept bringing home people for food and nothing else. His wife had nothing to eat. She had 2 brothers who came now to find her. The younger said, "Where's our brother-in-law's weakest spot?" She told them that his left ankle was the most tender spot. When Sacha-Cha came home, the brothers proposed a contest with arrows. And so, as you might imagine, they keep shooting arrows at him until they hit the left ankle.
Yeah, the Achilles heel.
The Sacha-Cha heel.
Yeah. that rolls off the tongue better than Achilles heel.
Sure. It's just poetry. It's poetry. The arrows that struck his body glanced off, but the one that struck the ankle killed him. This was an odd epilogue, I thought. They threw his 2 sons into the cave where he had slept on a bed of human hair, and with their sister they returned home.
Oh.
So, see ya.
Yeah.
Hybrid children, you're on your own.
Good luck.
But there's a bunch of stuff there, including the eating of people, sort of his wild status, the taking of a human bride, which is featured in a lot of these stories, that there's some type of crossover that could happen, that these wild men or wild beings are taking some people to eat and others to reproduce and keep the line going.
Yeah.
And that will recur throughout. So again, what we have is the gathering in of people for food.
Yeah.
Which that becomes a theme. That's something that we didn't really have time to get into last week with the Wendigo, but some of the Wendigo owl crossover legends included a female Wendigo with like a pot on her back or a basket, and if she caught you, if you were a child wandering where you shouldn't be, you'd go into the basket, go back to wherever the Wendigo was going, and probably became, stew.
Wow. That's like
Kid chili.
that whole idea of the basket on the back just reminds me of Krampus. They throw the bad kids in but then he took them away to hell. So a little bit different, I guess. But still, the idea of taking
either outcome is like,
it's neither's great. Neither's great. I looked up that book that you were just reading from.
Yeah.
And saw that. So Kathy is an archaeologist and anthropologist with the U.S. Forest Service, and these are verbatim stories, it says. Mm-hmm. So actually, she's not interpreting anything for anyone. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah. Yep.
She's also in the movie On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Search.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, she is part of Area X and the work that goes on.
Take me out of that, not remembering that. Yeah. Now that I see her picture, though, I actually do remember her. But
everything
I don't remember
you said
names.
was 100% true.
I know
and
that
valid.
part is because it's on the back of the book. I'm reading it. But that's so cool. Yeah, I appreciate the recording stories verbatim.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll do one more as sort of a epitome of what we've been talking about. This comes from the Shasta people, who are most part in California, northern part of California, which is significant for Bigfoot reasons, of course.
Right.
The Shasta have two names for a Bigfoot-like creature: Issaruquai, cannibal monster, and Tataklea, owl woman monster, a word that is shared with their close neighbors, the Yakima. So it's this Tataklea that I wanted to get into. Before the tribes lived peaceably in this country, before the last creation, there were certain people who ate Indians whenever they could get them. They preferred and hunted children as better eating. These people, the Tataklea, were taller and larger than the common human. They ate everything. They ate every bad thing known, such as frogs, lizards, snakes, and other things that Indians do not eat. They talked the Indian language and in that way might fool the Indians. There were 5 of them, all sisters. At the last creation, they came up only in California. 2 were seen there. They were women, tall, big women who lived in a cave. One time the Shastas were digging roots and camped. They knew that the 2 Tataklea were in that place. They were careful, but they caught one little boy not to eat, but to raise up and live with them. The boy thought he would be killed, but was not. The Tataklea had him several days. Every day the big women went out to gather stuff for food. Each had a big basket on her back and would come home with it filled with everything bad, frogs and snakes. These they would throw into the fire alive to cook. Then with a stick they pitched them from fire to the boy to eat, but he would not eat them. He went out and looked for his own food, roots and other things he liked. He did not try to escape. He was afraid of being overtaken and killed. Often at night, after the Tataklea had eaten, there would be left in the baskets some objects the boy could not see. These he believed to be human beings. They were roasted and eaten after he had gone to bed. He was allowed to see everything brought in the basket, all but these particular beings, whatever they were. Each day the boy would go farther and farther from their cave. He went in search of food and to play. At last he began searching to find a way back to his people. He kept looking for a way, but each night he would return to the cave. One day the little boy had all plans laid. He was going to run away from the rock den of the monster women, leave them and their bad poisonous things. The Tataklea left in the morning with the big baskets over their backs. When they were out of sight, the boy hurried away. He ran fast, traveled over rough, wild places, and at last reached his own people. They were glad, for they had supposed him dead. And if you were to go down the list of the stories that I have there, they would have a lot of these themes in common: being abducted, spared. Yep. There's a sense that something really bad's happening. Fortunately, it's not happening to you.
Right.
And that you finally make it back to your people, and everyone had assumed that you were, you had been consumed. But there's a gratefulness that you're back and alive. And so it's that the idea that they're called the owl women. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was really, worth mentioning in light of all the other stuff we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
So, killer cryptids.
Yep.
Don't go where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Stay off the tracks, please.
Yes,
for your own good.
Get off the train trestles, guys.
Yeah, and if you see something in the woods with a big basket on its back, get out.
Yeah.
Find a way out of that situation. Not like it.
Yes.
If you have any experience or stories having to do with killer cryptids, as you can tell, we're quite interested. So write us at monsteropolismail@gmail.com. We would be glad to have an all-listener, all-watcher letter edition of the Homicidal Haints, Part 2.
Yes.
Find us on the socials. We're always putting stuff out there. Remember, Monster Fest, June 2023. Mm-hmm. Make your plans now to join us in Canton, Ohio. Anything else?
monsteropolismail@gmail.com.
That's it. That's the place.
Letters, guys.
Please do.
All right.
Be safe out there.
Bye.